Hi, good morning. Welcome to this forum at MIT. My name is Jonathan King. I'm a faculty member in biology and a member of the steering committee, the Technology and Culture Forum. That's actually the organization that's hosting you. This morning, Technology and Culture Forum is celebrating its 50th anniversary, the night before last. And it's an independent organization of faculty, students, and staff that attempt to address the social, political issues in science and technology that academic departments won't touch, the university administration won't touch, but we try to bring it to the students. It is not well known that the reason this is an independent group has to do with the fact that the Episcopal Diocese of Massachusetts designates the Episcopal chaplaincy at MIT to support this work. Now, this is not an MIT audience, but in fact in the audience is my former colleague Willard Johnson, who led the South African divestment campaign in the period of the anti-apartheid struggle. Let me say, MIT has this very complicated history with respect to militarism. After World War II and the dropping of the bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, many of the Manhattan Project physicists that dispersed to University of California, University of Chicago, to MIT. Among the group that came to MIT, Victor Weisskopf, Philip Morrison, who many of you will remember his columns in Scientific American, Bernard Feld, who founded and was the editor of the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists. That group decided that the development of nuclear weapons had been a total mistake. And so they maintained a kind of provided a base for a nuclear disarmament presence on the campus during the period in which MIT was either the #1 or the #2 Pentagon University contractor after Johns Hopkins Physics Lab for 30 or 40 years. And it's that history provided some of the wiggle room that allows us here today. And then also during the resistance to the war in Vietnam, other leaders emerged. Professor Chomsky was well known in those days. Let me say that we owe a great debt to Massachusetts Peace Action. It is still difficult to raise these issues on the campus. And we owe a great debt to Massachusetts Peace Action for bringing this forum before us today. Many of you come from the Boston, Cambridge, Boston area. Well, actually, I see some New Bedford and places. So this community has a long history of resisting militarism and injustice, and it is gratifying to see you here today. You know, our work still unfolds before us. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. I wish I had something to put these silly papers on. I'm Cole Harrison, Executive Director of Mass Peace Action. I want to welcome you here today. The first thing I'd like to do is introduce the working group that has been meeting since May, the Foreign Policy for All working group that organized this conference and that also wrote the paper that we distributed that sets the basis for our discussions, and that will continue to work on these issues going forward. So if they're here, would they stand? Valentine Magadow. She probably hasn't got here yet. Director of International Affairs Program at Northeastern. Joseph Gerson, Disarmament Director of the American Friends Service Committee. Shibata Ghoshway of the MIT Working Group on Technology, Science, and Culture. Phil Martin, graduate student at MIT. Imam, Dorchester People for Peace. Paul Malachy, Massachusetts Global Action, is not here today, a family issue. Thea Paneth, Arlington, United for Justice with Peace. Igor Bolshakov, graduate student at Northeastern University. And Sheila Foreman, John Ratliff, and myself from Massachusetts Peace Action. And also Rosalie Anders from Peace Action and 350 Mass has also joined the working group. Her name is listed in the paper because she joined after it was finished. Also thanks to the organizations who sponsored today's conference. Our host, the MIT Technology and Culture Forum, including Jonathan King, and our sponsoring organizations, Massachusetts Peace Action, American Friends Service Committee, the MIT Western Hemisphere Association, United for Justice with Peace, the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom, Boston Branch, the Massachusetts Global Action, and the Democratic Socialists of America. Thank you to our sponsors. My friends, it's time for a change. U.S. foreign policy is mired in an unsustainable paradigm of worldwide military dominance, with force as an option of first resort. Washington seeks to act as the world's policeman, but the world did not choose the United States as its policeman. And so, this strategy causes insecurity and resentment towards the United States, as the United States tries to impose its will and tries to settle problems that are none of its business. A more restrained foreign policy would be more democratic and would cost less, freeing up attention and resources for our people's needs. The peace movement has spent the last 13 years resisting the U.S. wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, and is now opposing the new Mideast war on ISIS. We've exposed nuclear weapons threat to human survival. We've organized against U.S. support for the occupation of Palestine. We've opposed secret drone warfare. But to turn around U.S. foreign policy, we will need to have a much broader movement than we have built so far. The traditional peace movement cannot do it alone. Actually, though, foreign policy is everyone's problem, and the issues go far beyond questions of war and peace. Neoliberal globalization is a problem for the labor movement. It's a key driver of economic inequality. U.S. resistance to global climate negotiations is a problem for the climate justice movement. Neoliberalism's destruction of third world living standards causes mass immigration. Our government's resistance to human rights treaties and its failure to support the UN is a problem for the women's movement, for the LGBT movement, and for human rights advocates. The medical community needs a foreign policy if it is going to deal with problems like the Ebola outbreak. And the national security state that we constructed to police the world is now resorting to torture, surveillance of American citizens, and militarization of the domestic police. And our huge military budgets at over $1 trillion a year are sucking the resources all of these people's movements need to address the needs of our people. So what foreign policy do we need? The foreign policy for all is based on 5 basic values. Democracy. We don't want a foreign policy made by elites, created in secret. We need democratic control of our policy. Peace and international cooperation. We need to respect other nations, and we need to build collective security with them. Justice. We can't accept unjust power structures, and we must respect international law. Human rights. We have to uphold the full range of human rights and apply them to our own society, as well as join in promoting human rights worldwide. And sustainability. We need to live in harmony with the earth. We must promote climate justice and build a sustainable economy. We we'll find these 5 values. We wrote a one-page summary called The Foreign Policy for All at a Glance, and it's in your packet. So you'll find these 5 values there. And you'll also find the basic policies of the foreign policy for all. Nuclear disarmament. We should immediately start multilateral negotiations leading to the abolition of all nuclear weapons. Climate justice. We need an urgent national effort to reverse climate change, to support green economic development in less developed countries. We need to strengthen international law and international organizations. We need to reform the UN. We need to sign on to international courts, and we need to ratify dozens of treaties, international treaties that the United States has ratified. In some cases, it's one of only 2 or 3 nations in the world to not ratify some of these treaties. We should sign on to the 5 principles that were enunciated by the non-aligned movement: sovereignty, non-aggression, non-interference, equality and mutual benefit, and peaceful coexistence. These are good maxims to guide relations among countries. Non-intervention. We should renounce preemptive strikes. Humanitarian interventions, if they're needed, must be led by a reformed and democratic United Nations, not by a self-selected cabal of countries. Peace building abroad and at home. We should support international grassroots efforts. Nation states can't do everything. Civil society can do a lot. We should protect the global commons. The oceans, the atmosphere, outer space, and the polar zones should be the property of all humanity. Demilitarization. We should reduce military spending by 50% or more. We should close our overseas bases. We have over 1,000 military bases around the world. No other country has anywhere near that. We should refocus the mission of our military on defense of our national territory and on participating in UN missions. We should ratify the Arms Trade Treaty and shut down the international arms trade. And the United States is, of course, the world's largest arms exporter. We should contribute generously to world green economic and social development. And we should make these changes in a just way. We should have a just transition. The workers that currently work on military industries and fossil fuel industries should not be asked to bear the burden of this transition. The companies should do it, not the workers. Trade justice. We should base our trade policy on cooperation, solidarity, sustainable development, and democratic scrutiny. And we should change our policy in a number of key regional areas, such as China, Korea, the Middle East, the Persian Gulf, Israel, Palestine, Africa, Cuba, Venezuela, the Marshall Islands, NATO, and more. Individual cases where our policy should be changed. So to implement the foreign policy for all, we will have to confront corporate control. Corporate control of foreign policy means that nations that do not fall into line face economic ostracism, and in some cases, military threats and attacks. Multinational corporations think globally. They have a worldwide market. They have a worldwide production system. This phone, parts of it were made in 50 different countries. Apple Computer is an example of many of the transnational corporations. They don't build for one country, they build for the entire world. And that's why the entire world as a global market, from the point of view of the economic elite, must remain as one integrated market. It's U.S. armed forces that are called on to be the guarantor of last resort if a nation wants to leave that system. That's wrong. The other big problem is the national security state. The Pentagon, the National Security Council, the State Department, the CIA, NSA, and congressional leadership make policy in secret and are hardly at all accountable to the democratic institutions that are supposed to control our government. They're supported by the military-industrial complex, key think tanks, and academic allies. The media also plays a key role in shaping the narrative and selling the policy to the public. We have to overturn the grip of these entrenched institutions on our foreign policy if we're going to implement a foreign policy for all. The foreign policy for all is only one part of a people's agenda that is bringing together a new labor movement, people of color, immigrants, women, LGBT people, ex-prisoners, environmentalists, community activists, civil libertarians, and more in a broad progressive coalition. Popular struggles are rising against corporate abuses, against extreme inequality, cutbacks, social injustice, racism, money in politics. Campaigns against those abuses are joining with campaigns against unpopular wars, killer drones, nuclear pollution, surveillance, wiretapping, militarization of police, mass incarceration, and racial profiling. These combined movements will rise or fall together because all are ultimately struggling against the same corporate interests that control our economy and politics for the benefit of the 1%. To win a foreign policy for all will take the united power of these progressive social movements all working together. So today we are asking for your feedback on these ideas. Speakers and workshops will dig deeper into the specifics. There's an evaluation form in your packets which asks for your comments. There's also an online forum that you could submit your comments. In the winter, we will hold local discussion meetings in several parts of Massachusetts to get more input on the foreign policy for all. After we collate and integrate all your comments and input, we hope to update the Foreign Policy for All statement and submit it to the Massachusetts Peace Action annual meeting in February, where it will hopefully be amended and passed as an organizational document. And other of the co-sponsoring organizations will be working with the Foreign Policy for All in their own way. After that, we hope to take these ideas national and present them at several national conferences next year, such as the People's Mobilization for the Planet and to abolish nuclear weapons that is scheduled in New York on April 24th to 26th. I think there are flyers for that outside. Okay. Shoot. I'm supposed to remind you of the timeline for the day, but I haven't got it in front of me. Here it is. Okay, we're going to start with the presentations by Noam Chomsky and Bill Fletcher, and they will be moderated by Judith LeBlanc. After that, we'll have the first workshop session, and in your packets is a list of workshops. One workshop has been added at the last minute. It wasn't in your packet. It will be in the morning session in room 4-145, and it will be on counter-recruitment work in the Chelsea High School, experiences from working against militarism among youth in Chelsea. The workshops are in a variety of rooms around the MIT campus. Unfortunately, some of them are a bit of a hike. So there's a map in your packages that shows you where those buildings are. So once you figure out what workshop you're going to, you have to figure out what building it's in and follow the signs to the building. Now to get to the workshops, one of them is on the third floor of this building, but most of the rooms are in other buildings. And for all those other buildings, you go out to this door of this building and enter the building across the way, and you will start to see signs that direct you to those buildings. Lunch will be at 12:45. It will be on the third floor of this building. And then we'll be back here after lunch for the afternoon panel with Phyllis Bennis and Stephen Kinzer. And Magadon will moderate that panel. Then we'll have the second round of workshops, which are in the same list of rooms, and then we'll be back here for a brief wrap-up at the end of the day, where we'll talk about the way forward. Bathrooms are to the right and left of the elevator, which is in that direction once you leave the plenary room. And the last announcement I wanted to make is that many of our presenters today have written books, and their books are on a table that you can purchase outside. And many of our presenters will also be able to sign their books once you buy them.
Could you please repeat the room and your workshops, since people are probably fumbling for the list and they want to write it down.
I'm sorry, I don't have the handout in front of me, but it's the exact title, but it's Lessons from Counter Recruitment Work in the Chelsea High School, 4-145.
That's this building? Oh, no, that's building 4.
No, this is building 34. That's a question in the front row, yeah.
Are there any recordings made of the workshops?
No, the plenary talks are being videoed, and they'll be available afterwards. The morning plenary will be shown on Cambridge cable TV any number of times, like a dozen times over the next couple of months. The afternoon will not be, but will be posted on YouTube. But we have not made arrangements to record the workshops, sorry. Yes?
Would you know the group number of workshop 1 and workshop 2?
Well,
There are several workshops.
we didn't do a very good job of giving the numbers to the workshops. Some of the documents gave the numbers and some of them just used the names.
It's in the back. Oh, it's on the back of this page. It's back of the schedule.
It's on the back, right? Yeah, on the back of your schedule is the list of workshops, and each workshop has its room here. Okay, so now I'd like to turn over to Judith LeBlanc. Judith is National Field Director for Peace Action, and she is a veteran of many progressive struggles and organizations. Immediately before Peace Action, she was active in United for Peace and Justice for a number of years. She was, I believe, two terms as national co-chair, is that right? And also was